Hello again, Zephyr here, and we're going to be continuing with the Reset or Starting Over series. So today we're going to be doing the Shieldmaiden. The Shieldmaiden has high base health, very strong defense and block, some mild regeneration, and somewhat slower movement speed. She has some different builds that can be very powerful. If focused on the Warhammer, crit chance and crit bonus are extremely valuable here, as the Warhammer has a 400% crit bonus. On the other hand, you can also focus, or additionally focus, in Shield Bash, as block strength increases its damage. Shield Bash can also knock back elites with that little asterisk there. The Warhammer also gains an extra 200 crit bonus, that's base crit bonus, over the course of 100 levels. So if you can get to level 100, you will have 600 base crit bonus. She also gains a global area percentage and a global block strength bonus as well. Percentage block strength. So the Shield Bash, and we've done the Shieldmaiden before, but to cover it again, the Shield Bash scales with attack speed as well as block strength, and has no true base damage. And instead, its base damage is purely the value of your block strength. So in essence, her block strength is 20, and the Shield Bash does 2 times that. So, in essence, it's 40 damage versus the 200 of the Warhammer. But, getting into this, we can focus heavily on block values here. We returned a hood. Let's buy that. Oh, and an achievement. Not sure what that achievement did, but I want to find out. I miss it. Buy 10 items. From the Wellkeeper. Seal of Rebirth. Okay. So Seal of Rebirth is an item that is a ring that brings you back to life after you've died. Just a revive effect. Now, I think I've only used it once. And we will have to find it in a level. It is not just instantly unlocked. So, going back here, we're going to run the hood, because we got that in the last video. We have no extra rings, however. And we have limited gloves. We could do movement speed, but that seems boring. And we have 10 movement speed here and 10 movement speed there. So, we don't have anything better for these slots, and we have some really strong base defense. So she's going to start out with, she has 10, she's going to get 10 more there, 10 more there, 30, and then she starts with 20 block strength. She's going to get 20 more from her gear, and then 20 movement speed. And last I ran her, the Iron Ring did not work on the Shield Bash. I strongly believe it should. It works on every ability that you can pick up. It works on transfixion and the needles and the fireballs and the everything else. So I haven't made like a bug report or a discussion post or anything like that. But it's just an opinion. The Iron Ring, if it's going to work on everything except for one thing, maybe it should just work on that one thing. And it's not really that much stronger, since block strength is a significant bigger value here. And if we had a different helmet, we could probably get block strength up here as well. I think the plated helmet gives block strength as well. So this gives 20 damage, that gives 20 damage, and this gives 15 damage to the main hand, but not the block strength attack. Now, furthermore, if I recall the correct information, Let me see if I can find it. I don't see it here. It might, however, be down there. And they may have changed something. I was searching this the other day. I think it's this one right here. Dominator 3. So if we can kill 10,000 enemies in the viaducts, we will unlock the next class, which is the Sorceress. However, the viaducts are difficult, and I think intentionally so. As the game is very roguelike with the meta progression, roguelite, it is expecting you to invest in your, so to say, tree here. As we progress through the tree, we will have more and more value. And as we get more items, we will start with more and more value as well. So I'm 8 gold off of something like that. Not sure how much we need health regeneration, but I don't know if we will be able to afford anything else. Yeah, it's still 8 gold off of pretty much everything we'd want. Burn damage is not that important. This character doesn't do burn damage by default. Guess we could put it into pickup range. That's probably going to be more useful than the health regeneration. And that's, well, I guess we can do still a point of health regeneration. It's not going to hurt us. Okay. So I'm going to try the viaducts. If we fail, we'll just do another level. We'll seek out some resources in the second world here if we fail on the viaduct. Otherwise, we'll get the potion items from the viaduct. Always a goal in mind. At least for these videos. So this bird gives you movement speed. It is kind of a quest thing. If you move to the bottom left, you will be able to get both the scroll and the movement speed bonus from the bird. But if you move to the top right, you will get the cupbearer, which we did in a previous episode. My range is not great right now, so I am actually moving faster than these dudes are. We probably want a few levels before we just run haphazard straight to the left. So here's what I'm talking about. The ring would not imbalance this character at all, because here it is. 5 base block strength, boom, we have 10 more damage. No big deal. So it's just a little bizarre is all, more so than it is something that would break the game. And already we're actually doing pretty good. We're actually able to kill things pretty quick. Well, there are 2 resources up top. There's 1 resource down here. These dudes are a lot squishier than the dudes that are chasing us. I'm going to go with the crit chance. We have pretty low crit chance, but if we can get those crits to start flowing... So this is a character that massively benefits from the Mark of the Archer, which gives base crit chance of, I think, 15. Maybe it's 25 or 20. They changed everything around, so my memory is now useless. I mean, it always was, but it still is, too. Okay, these skeletons should be squishy, maybe? They're armored skeletons. I don't know if the ones in the first area are armored. We can probably take a few hits. Let's just see where we're at. Yeah. Got an achievement for this character class. Is that damage? Oh, it's damage. So defense and block strength versus attack speed and damage. Now, this is good, especially if you have the memory potions, where you can take two different things at once. And then there's another one. Up in proficiency, block chance, and damage. So crit bonus is huge here because we have a, what, 400% base crit bonus? So this would give us, oh, just so much crit bonus. I'm gonna say 90.9 because the 1.0 would probably be the base value of the damage. I'm gonna go with the damage here because I'm not really sure how I want to handle this yet. And I am gonna walk in here and try to get this scroll, which would be very helpful if we can actually get to it without taking damage. As we're kind of just kiting things, a little bit of extra range on a melee character is very helpful. This dude is really trying to cut me off. There we go. I'm taking more of the generic traits here just to kind of get going. Physical and melee. Physical and summon. We're going to go with Radiant Aura. Not my first instant choice, but it is still a very strong spell. So we can isolate a boss with Radiant Aura since it splits all its damage equally. We used it on the Cleric. It is unlocked by the Cleric. This guy is really chasing me hard here. Let's take some movement speed. Let's also work our way up to the other scroll here. Let's do some crit bonus, get our crits going. Get off me. Go away. Why are you standing on top of me? Why do you do that? Why is that allowed? My character's not that slow. I'm gonna get more movement speed here, just in case here. He's just gonna stand on me again. That's not allowed. That should not be allowed. I know I'm a slower class, but still. Let's get some more attack speed going. Reminder that if it doesn't say something specific, the things like attack speed and damage are considered global effects, which means they affect everything. Very powerful bonuses, even if they say only 6%. It also is affecting this aura. So since we're having this one boss kind of get in our face, we might be able to get some good damage on him by just hitting him slightly faster. Oh, these gargoyles are now also in my face. There we go. Oh, he didn't even drop an item. He was probably the guy from the circle that we got the aura from. So the gargoyles do tend to kind of swoop around you. I think they are intended to kind of get closer, but not actually beeline straight at you. Let's just see what we get. Let's do this one. So this level is very important to just do a lot of damage very quickly. If you cannot snowball on this level, you will probably die. There we go. Yeah, let's do Transfixion. We just unlocked that last episode. Okay. I am going to go for a block-based run here. Let's go defensive. It benefits this class. We may also want to take a little bit of crit bonuses, as we already have. And some crit-focused things like Phantom Needles might be useful as well. If we're already going crit stuff. We don't have a whole lot of gems on the ground here. So we want the block strength and movement speed. Movement speed's always pretty good. I'm getting pushed to the left here just slightly. Okay, we unlocked Piercing Wind last time, I think, too. Still have a really low crit chance. So the crit bonus, it's really good here. I'm just questioning whether or not it's as good as 15% damage. Let's take the bonus base crit. Transfixion can also go crit, similar to the needles. So you can kind of go more into a fragile status effect and slow if you get the upgrades to it. Secondary abilities. Or you can go... The attack speed would be really good here too. So it's a question of, do I want that block strength for the hits or the 10% attack speed for the other thing? And I'm going to say the attack speed's probably better. It only affects main weapon. I don't know if that considers the actual block attack or not. It's a secondary weapon, but it's also kind of your main weapon, so... There we go. So we can get Fragile and Affliction chance here. So Fragile increases the damage taken from direct damage, such as physical, magic, whatever, fire. But the Affliction is the chance of damage over time. The chance of Affliction gives damage over time bonuses to Burn, Spark, and Frost. So, False Blessing shows up if you have something that can trigger Fragile or Affliction. It will not show up otherwise. And you can banish it normally if you don't want it. So if you wanted to do more of a crit-focused build with Transfixion, you could have just banished this. I'm going to take it. I think a little bit of extra Fragile is going to be good. There's our second plant potion ingredient. Get a little up close and personal these gargoyles, maybe. There we go. So we've spent 2 runs to get 6 ingredients. 20% damage, 15 base force. I don't remember what force does for Radiant Aura. I don't know if it's a multiplier or a knockback. My guess is it's a multiplier. Because knockback would be kind of inconsistent with what it's doing, but I don't know that for sure. So while I really want that block strength, I do kind of want this damage too. So I don't know. I'll just do global damage. Make no decision. Be indecisive here. This guy's going to drop an item most likely, which is really locking us out of progress right now. We could just get an item for an item slot that we're not currently wearing. Like a ring or a different amulet would be really good. And I don't actually know the most efficient way to start over here. This is purely an experimentation effort. Let's just do this. I don't know what it's going to do, but we'll do it. So we've done some failed attempts. We'll see how far we get on this. I will argue that as long as you're getting some meta progression, that makes sense. Such as items in the well, or potion ingredients, or the cupbearer himself, NPCs, class unlocks, these things are extremely important. So don't get discouraged by death. It is a roguelite. I'm going to take that one because it benefits both my weapons. Having a difficulty hitting things just right here. Get off my face! Magic projectile, physical, dragon's breath. I'm not sure that we've used Dragon's Breath before, so we're just going to do it. Potion of Memories, there we go. So that'll allow us to take 2 of a given trait, save 1, and kind of pin it to the top of the list here. I think this one I'll take attack speed, and the other one I'll keep taking like the block damage value thing. Okay, now we're getting a little excessive. So this is something that I talked about last video. Taking a bunch of abilities is going to dilute your pool really quickly, because you're going to get like 2 for this, 2 for that, 2 for this, maybe even 3 on certain levels or 4 on certain levels. And so if we take a 4th ability here, even though the ability itself is probably really good, if you're looking for something specific and you don't have, like, we don't have reroll potions right now. We don't have banishment potions right now. Our pool is going to be absolutely diluted. And I thought I had Radiant Aura to 3. I may have just gotten unlucky. I don't think we have Transfixion or Dragon's Breath to 3. I just picked it up out of habit. So, kind of a skill issue there. At the same time, though, the damage of one of these abilities may be worth it on this level and with what we're doing. So Flame Strike is really good at killing bosses. This is really good at killing bosses. These are more area of effect. So I'm actually going to take Flame Strike and see if we can get kind of close to this boss without dying. See? And we were able to kill it because it's just insane damage. Attack speed versus multi-strike. We don't have a potion to reroll this yet either. Hunting gloves are absolutely amazing, because multi-strike is a very rare value. So even though 30% attack speed here is really good, multi-strike could be even better, depending on your build, depending on what you're trying to do. So, sadly, none of these really benefit us right now. The burning circlet could be really good for these two. But the movement speed is, I think, saving our butts. So I'm going to take the hunting gloves. Maybe we'll get a secondary bucket. I think we have to use the bucket before we can get a secondary bucket, though. So Dragon's Breath is this wave of fire. I've got my opacity kind of set to relatively transparent here. So there we go. We did not have this to 3, so we couldn't get the effect. I don't want it to 3 still. Let's go some fire affinity. Okay. We don't have level 3 on any of these. I'm not going to pick up that next scroll until we do. I don't remember what the limit on scrolls is, but there is definitely a limit. I really don't want that one. I really... That's the only one we can take for transfixion, so I'll just take that one. You can't see me right-click. There's no visual or audio cue that I am right-clicking on those, but I'm checking to see if there is a secondary ability that I might roll in a different pick-up or level up. So I'm going to go Flame Strike, and I believe our crit values for... maybe not. I thought this character class got crit bonus on a per level basis. Not seeing it in the menus. But if it is a global crit bonus, it means building crit effects is useful. So Flame Strike and Transfixion are going to have some really good crits there. Effect chance. I don't really care about burn. I would prefer, at least not from Flame Strike. The Dragon's Breath is pretty good, though. Yeah, I'll take that one. The Radiant Aura is really not visible. The opacity on some of these abilities are drastically different, and maybe that needs to be brought up to the devs. I don't know. Base block strength. That's instant 10 damage. Okay, just to put this in perspective, we do have 36 defense, which is translating to 42% damage reduction. We have 80 block strength, which anything less than 20 is guaranteed block, and anything around 200 damage is 20% chance to block. We'll wait a couple more levels here before picking this up. I want to guarantee that it's one of our 4 and not just getting a 5th ability here. Let's go with area. We don't have any area bonuses. It's only 6%, but that can translate to kind of a lot. I'm doing a lot of mix and match, even though I'm focusing on a lot of block on some of these traits. I'm not focusing all of my value on those traits. Trying to remember how it all works. There's each character class has like a stance, a weapon proficiency, and a dedication, I guess is the best way to put that. I think it's, yeah, I think it's like, but there's kind of like 3 class branches, if you will. I don't want this other, I want the other one, so base block strength, still 10 damage on the other offhand attack. I wish we could see cooldowns on our attacks over here. That'd be kind of nice. I think it actually used to be over here for the shield. So maybe they have changed some stuff. Yep. The ring does not affect it, but we are getting a lot of multipliers there, so we're getting something like 400 damage. So the block strength quickly makes it better or close to the Warhammer. The Warhammer can crit, though, the block cannot. Which I think is totally fair, honestly. I like those kind of trade-offs. I'm not a huge Path of Exile kind of guy, but I've always really loved the key, the key nodes. I don't remember what they're called. I think that's what, something like that. Key skills. That drastically change your character. And, what do I want here? Let's go for damage. Those key nodes are things that really embrace my concept of chunkiness compared to a lot of other stuff in that game, which is extremely incremental, and I find a lot of those incremental values to be somewhat boring. Just a personal preference there. I have enjoyed time playing Path of Exile in the past. I have over something like 11 or 12 years, I have like 300 hours in the game. So that tells you a lot about how much I've touched the game. Not much, comparatively. I am not hitting level 90s or 100s or whatever and doing crazy endgame maps in that game. I am excited for Path of Exile 2. A lot of people have kind of described it as maybe having some Dark Souls inspirations. Obviously, it's inspired by Diablo 1 and 2, originally. Primarily 2. Yeah, let's do some crit bonus. Why not? Who knows? But those keynotes, you know, they're super interesting. I love those keynotes. You know, you no longer miss, but you can no longer crit. It was one that I used to take for a while there on at least 1 or 2 character classes. Just because I really enjoyed the idea of not having to care about a mechanic. And this is kind of evolving into a broader conversation here. I am going to take this one. Let's get 10% blocked value here. Because I think that will drastically increase our block chance. Gave us like 5.5. Not great. I mean, it's not terrible, but 5.5 is not. We need base block to make it worthwhile. Anyways, getting into more of a global conversation about, man, what was I talking about? I know I was talking about key nodes. Too many things to focus on. Decisions to be made. I have completely lost it. I don't know what I was talking about. I mean, I do, but I don't know where I was about to go. I will attempt what I think I was about to say. Let's do Sacred Flame. We already have a bunch of flame here. I don't need health. I've got a lot of burn stuff. That might be useful. I think this is what I was going to say. Basically, there is a certain level of complexity in any game where you might ask, is this too much? And for me, Path of Exile is too much. And in a more global conversation, this is not Path of Exile bad, this is not Path of Exile blah, blah, blah. I'm not really talking about Path of Exile so much as I'm talking about kind of general design and opinions here. But there comes a question in a designer stage, you know, on not so much as the player, but as the designer. Do you build this mechanic? Do you add this other mechanic? What do you do? How do you handle this? So there's Seal of Rebirth, Echoing Band. I'm gonna take the Echoing Band. I think that's really good for our run. Probably could be good for putting in the well. Path of Exile 2 is trying to simplify a bunch of mechanics, and I don't know if it's going to be my forte per se, but I think a lot of stuff in Path of Exile for me is just too much. There's a lot of lack of choice, and then there's a lot of no choice, too many choices all over the place in that style of game, and it kind of comes with the skill tree, and I'm going to say, like, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good or bad thing, as much as it's just a thing to acknowledge as a player, as a designer, either way. And part of that aspect is just simply a lot of people, myself included, when you go and you play Path of Exile, are you overwhelmed by the skill tree? And even the designers of Path of Exile, Grinding Gear Games, have absolutely said that people do this. You know, they go in there, they're absolutely overwhelmed, and then they decide to rely on a guide, you know, a build on a website, or they try to plan it out on their own because there's so much going on. And lots of people love this depth. I don't think complexity equals depth, though, personally. As a want to be a designer, depth does not one-to-one relate to complexity. I think you can have a lot of depth from simplicity, and I think that complexity comes often, not always, but often, I think complexity comes from amateur designs. Less experienced designers, developers, and this is even in the AAA scene. And I've seen similar concepts and statements from, you know, users, designers, whatever. That difficulty also sometimes is a bit amateurish. If you have a game that's overly difficult or has really, really hard jumps that don't feel natural, it's one thing to have a difficult boss. It's another thing to have a difficult boss in a game that has up to that point been relatively easy. It is incredibly difficult in games like I'm going to say it, Dark Souls, to perfectly balance items and equipment. You're always going to have something that you didn't think of. Unless you do just absolutely crazy amounts of playtesting with probably a very large amount of player base, you're never going to be able to catch everything. But difficulty for difficulty's sake, complexity for complexity's sake, they're chewy gum for the brain, to put it lightly. I think that that designers, game designers, especially indie designers, and I don't mean like grinding your games is kind of indie, technically something, or was at one point. I don't mean grinding your games. I don't mean FromSoft. I mean like two-person solo dev, two-person dev, five-person dev indie games. It's really easy to not have basically player checks or understanding of what your player knows and how much they're going to struggle. Even in simple games, and I've maybe even used this example before, but this is an old story for Portal 1. Valve was having... I'm going to send that up. Echoing Ban is probably going to be our strongest extra ring there, since it's an empty slot. Snowball effect. You want to have a lot of power starting off, more than you want to have probably the memory potion at level 50. But the Portal story. There was a room, there may still be a room, I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played Portal 1. Over a decade, probably. Where Valve designed a room, and Valve's not indie, so... I mean, people joke about Valve being small indie game company, right? But, Valve is, you know, multi-billion-dollar organization. I'm not going to consider that indie. But it's a good example. Sorry, I'm rambling on way too much here. There is a room that in the original design of... Look at this, go to work. That people would not look up. There was this puzzle, and it was meant for you to kind of like, it was like an escape room or something where you were supposed to look up and see that there was a white wall above you. And they ran this through playtesters, and playtesters couldn't figure out this room. It's just, they were struggling so hard. So they added some like visual indicators of trying to get the player to look up. And players were still struggling to see it. So then they eventually, I guess, put like a sign in the room that like had an arrow and said, look up. And players were still having a hard time with it. But players would figure it out because there were so many different indicators at this point. So when an indie developer, solo, 2-person, 5-person, 10-person, something smaller, less experienced, they don't have a ton of titles under their belt, comes along and tries to do something complex or difficult or new or interesting, one of the things that sometimes happens, commonly happens in my opinion, but at least sometimes happens, is that you overdo it. You overdo the difficulty. You overdo the complexity. You overdo the mechanics. And gamers as we are, we will take things at face value without having any knowledge, you know, of all the background effects, right? The average gamer is not a programmer is not gonna know about the art direction of 3 years of development or the programming direction of an engine, right? We don't know. We don't care. I mean, I care, but, you know, the average gamer probably doesn't care. And why should they? They shouldn't have to. I mean, the average car driver doesn't really care too much about their engine either. So it's easy to think that the player is going to do something. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're absolutely going to understand this, and then they don't. And that can be frustrating. And this is, you know, common adage in, say, like, tabletop games and board games, card games, that kind of stuff, physical games. If you're not playtesting constantly, you're not really making a game. And I think a lot of video games sometimes fail to do this, and it's expensive. You know, it's expensive. Now, big AAA studios, they're going to have entire teams dedicated to some of this stuff. You know, testing, QA, people that are just going to push the game or the engine to the absolute limits. But now imagine, you know, 5 people maybe trying to, you know, QA a game. And even still, they're not going to be experts in game balance or what players are going to absolutely do stupid stuff for. So I'm just upgrading all of my current stuff here. Anyway, long rant, I know, and not very concise. But I think that some stuff in Path of Exile, for example, again, I'm not ragging on Path of Exile. I think it's a fine game. I like it. I don't love it. It's okay to me. It's better than a lot of games out there, but it doesn't keep me attached to it. I think a lot of development and design, mechanics design and game design ends up being, we're going to trade simplicity for complexity and pray and hope that it adds depth. It's going to add depth a year from now. It's going to add depth by the time it releases. I am old. I'm old enough that I truly believe that, for example, games like this. There's a lot of complexity in this game, but honestly, this game is pretty simple. This game is pretty simple. It has complexity to it, but every piece of complexity in this game, for the most part, does, I think, actually add a significant amount of depth. And I think it's more the style of game that you have to constrain yourself. And I think old school games had to constrain themselves because of mechanical limitations. Imagine having this many enemies on the screen in like 1998 or 2000 or something. You would not be having any form of 3D graphics. And yes, I think this game is actually full 3D. I'm not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure it's actually full 3D. I think it's just stylized to be low and pixelated and stuff like that. Built-in Godot engine, this game is. Limitations of the hardware, limitations of time, limitations of almost all engines were handmade back then. You know, it wasn't, I think, until really the early 2000s that engines really started getting spread around and shared so much. I mean, we had the, you know, id Software and the Doom engine and whatnot that evolved. I think it was Doom. Or was it Quake? I'm mixing up my mindset here, maybe. That served as the, you know, the Gold Source engine, and the Gold Source engine, of course, evolved into the Source engine made by Valve. We are so close to getting 10,000. We're just shy of some stuff here. Maybe if I was a little more aggressive, we would have gotten 10,000 kills. We got 2 minutes, but don't know if we have enough spawns. We're at the point where our block rate is actually... Ooh, there we go. Carry 4. Carry 5. Yeah, our block rate is high enough that we can basically just walk through enemies. Which is cool. Get a hit 180 times in a run. Not know that that was an achievement. We're really close. We're getting there. I think we did 500 in about 40 seconds, though. I don't know that we can actually get there. More range. But yeah, that's my rant for today. About some different things there. And this partially comes off of some of the changes in Dota recently. It's fun. I don't think it has the depth that a lot of people think it has. I think it's design space. I like to talk about design space sometimes. The idea that a game has a specific design space. You create a mechanic and you open up space. Space can be infinite, effectively. It's a blank slate, right? The space within a game could be potentially design infinite. But every mechanic that you invent, every mechanic that you add to a game is a burden on the player or a burden on the machine, depending on tabletop and just different things like that. We hit 10,000. We did it. We actually did it. And now we have a build that actually probably can just obliterate this boss. And Transfixion and the Aura are probably doing a lot of the work here because they're adding so much bonus damage that's multiplying our regular damage. Okay. There you go. I think this is episode 5 in the series. So our 5th run, we were able to do the Aqueduct with the Shieldmaiden. And a lot of unlocked skills here. And I'll probably do a dedicated video to the whole Dota thing. I already kind of had a complaint while I was half dead from being sick a while back now. And, but Dota added a whole talent system. You have these talent trees and stuff. And I know there's a rant at the end of the video here, but Dota this whole talent thing. And I find like 80% of talents are still just absolutely boring. I get that they're numeric increases and that they're meant to kind of fill this void of you run out of skill points, basically. You have 4 levels of each of your normal skills and 3 levels of your ultimate in Dota. And you run out of skill points, and so you had this background noise of attribute points where you just get +2 to all points on level ups afterwards, just kind of this filler. But that filler, for me, it was fine. It wasn't something that necessarily needed to be fixed. And when they fixed it, I was excited, so to say. When they added talents to Dota, I was excited. But let's go over to... We got to select a hero. We unlocked the sorceress here. So just putting that out there. A lot of spark and crit and base damage there. We've got 6 of these. And we've got the Echoing Band. So I may not unlock that this second. You can't undo an unlock on a thing. You can undo these. You can refund these all you want. Just to finish out my rant, I I want to say I apologize, but I really don't want to apologize, because that's like the point of the channel, is for me to ramble on about game mechanics. Dota 2 added these talents, and I find that most of the talents, basically, they are stat gains. They're not interesting to me. So I don't consider them to be very chunky in the sense of decision making. Now, at the pro scene, every little point of damage, every little bit of range, every little bit of whatever absolutely matters. At the balance scale, it absolutely matters. But in the sense of playing a video game and getting to another level, if I don't have an interesting decision, then kind of what's the point? And deciding between a bunch of different things that are relatively powerful or incremental, the incremental decisions, they fall into background noise slowly, and you don't have to think about it. So Diablo 2, you're leveling up Fireball, and you've got it to level 3. But you know that you want to continue leveling up Fireball. So you level up, you put a point into Fireball, you forget about it. Same thing with this game. You know that you want damage or crit or multi-strike or whatever. So when you level up, for the most part, you're figuring out what you want out of the 4 options, and you're doing it somewhat quickly. That's what I mean by background noise. You're doing it quickly. But a lot of the talents in Dota, they're skippable, especially the level 10s. They're not that interesting. They're technically powerful for the timeline that you get them, but even high-level players and pro players in Dota sometimes skip the level 10s and just take another skill. Like, I think it's actually pretty common. I'm not 100% on that. Point is, I don't find them very interesting. I don't find them very useful. For the design space they were placed in, I think they could be used better. I think there's so many more things you could do with them, but they're not. So we're stuck with, 10% movement speed slow or 5 extra armor, which just, even if it's attached to a skill, it's just not always that interesting. So they added these facets, which are basically like supercharged talents that you get at level 1. You can't get the other one later on. So when you hit level 30 in Dota, you get all of your talents by that point. So level 25, you have 4 talents on your tree out of 8. And by level 30, you have all 8. Facets are like supercharged talents that you choose before the game starts. And there's probably some code reasons for that, actually. I'm been questioning that personally. I'm not sure. But these supercharged facets, they could be really interesting. But with the design space that's already being not very utilized with talents, I really expect, because it's Valve, they love to invent something and then forget it. Or add something new and then do very, very little with it. And while we're getting updates and tweaks here very, very quickly on this current patch of Dota, I just don't expect most of the facets to be all that interesting. And I've had one of my friends even straight up say they really dislike the direction that Dota has gone, to the extent of innate abilities, passive abilities. Now, almost every MOBA out there, except for Dota, had innates. And so Dota's not the first. But one of the things that Dota had an advantage in, if you will, was that you had complete control over your hero and its choices. And now you have no control over some of the abilities that have been moved into innates, while other abilities are just kind of background noise where they have a level 0 version. And I actually don't hate that. But it skews a lot of the decisions. And that's what this friend of mine was saying. It skews a lot of decisions that you have early on in the game. Do I take this passive that makes me defensive, or do I take the offensive skill? And for a hero maybe like Dragon Knight in the new Dota game, new Dota patch, now has this innately, and you just get a certain value at each level. His Dragon's Blood gives armor, physical defense, as well as health regeneration. while this is a very big power creep in some aspects of the game design, it also takes away control from the player. So it's no longer a decision at that point. But as a player that really enjoyed having that level of control and manipulation and forcing, for example, forcing a opponent to take the, so to say, wrong skill point just to survive was actually a major strategy in defeating some of the tankier heroes or certain carries in the laning phase. That sometimes is now removed. Not all heroes have had this removed, but in certain very specific situations have had some of this mildly adjusted or removed. And so some of those strategies are gone. So it's not just simply, that. Anyways, that's enough rambling for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's I've gotten a little bit more down to earth in it. We beat the viaduct on our fifth run. Sixth run, I think. Yeah, because we've done all these characters, right? Yeah, sixth run. We beat the viaduct on the sixth run. We probably could have done it sooner if we used like the bow or the Shieldmaiden sooner. I don't think that the exterminator or the swordsman, and probably not the cleric, would have been able to do the viaduct very early on without some of the effects. I think the Shieldmaidens, due to her tankiness, was a big key factor in this run. I think the archer, her movement speed and ranged and critical values could help you get an early snowball effect. And as you level up your, so to say, skill tree here, that will help you significantly and getting new items as well. This is really good. It's not melee attacks, it's physical attacks. So Echoing Band is a circular shockwave on any physical damage. This includes pets, this includes melee, this includes secondary effects, this includes arrows, this includes needles, the needle abilities, and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, like I said, hope you enjoyed this episode. I will be probably getting more and more into the weeds with stuff like these ramblings. So if you enjoy the ramblings, let me know. If you don't, I'm sorry. That's probably the direction this channel is going to evolve towards. Hopefully they'll be more concise, though. More concise ramblings. Well, like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you've made it to the end of this video, you probably belong here. Until the next video, see you around. We'll be doing the sorceress.